Hello, this is Neena Singh, guest editor, The Wise Owl. And today I bring you Aili, creator of Charita, Jembun, and Dua, three unique storytelling short form genres. She is also the editor of the Charita, founding editor and publisher of Still, Moving into Breath, and Dew Online. Aili's poems have been widely published in the UK, USA, and Japan. We will tell you more about Aili as we move forward in this interview. Aili has created 22 original, unique, and exciting linked forms akin to Renku Akaranga, three of which are Charita, Jembun, and Dua. These three storytelling short form genres have been widely embraced and have grown in popularity since Aili created two in 1997 and one in 2022. Charita, Jembun, and Dua bring out the storyteller which lives in all of us. Aili taught a Charita class at the Hampstead U3A, and this class produced 7 fine poets who have contributed to the Charita with their timeless stories. She encouraged and guided her students to write in one breath, whenever possible. Aili strongly believes that with 6 lines and other short forms of poetry, drafting can rob a poem of its immediacy and essence, which inevitably means a Charita, Jembun, and Dua will lose their potency. She writes all her Charita, Jembun, Dua, Tanka, and haiku poems in one breath and has been doing this for almost 30 years for 4 of these genres. Aili lives quietly and mindfully in London nowadays and writes in a Rousseau-inspired dream yard, watched over by 3 old stone Buddhas, a resident pair of hedge sparrows, and a chorus of different birds, blackbirds, robins, greenfinches, dunnocks, goldfinches, chaffinches, blue tits, gold tits, long-tailed tits, and a gold-tressed. It would be lovely to see all these birds with Aili one day. Thank you, Aili, for taking time out to talk to The Wise Owl, which is a literary and art e-magazine, and our principal editor is Rachna Singh. I am grateful to her for giving me this opportunity to talk to you, and we are delighted to interact with you. As you know, you motivated me to write Charita and Jembun, and now, of course, I will write Dua too. Welcome, welcome, Aili.
Namaste, Neena. Mera naam Aili. Lovely to meet you at long last, albeit virtually. How are you and your loved ones?
Thank you, Aili. That is so touching that you have greeted me in our traditional Namaste form. Thank you so much for the effort. All is well with us, and my son and grandson are here, so we are having a good time with them. Life is good. God is kind. You are a prolific creator, a prolific poet and creator of several genres of poetry, Aili. Our viewers would be keen to know what attracted you to poetry. What were the creative influences in your life that inspired you to become such a celebrated poet?
Before I answer that, Neena, do I know this person you've just been describing?
That's so sweet of you. You are so humble. When I told you you are a celebrated poet, you said, no.
Well, now it's my turn to thank you, Neena, and the Wise Owl, for very kindly inviting me for this tete-a-tete. I've scribbled some notes in anticipation of what you may be asking me, and I hope it's okay to refer to them, as my dyslexia can rear its mischievous head if I don't.
Absolutely.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Now to answer your question. Poetry fell into my life like an autumn leaf. I didn't go looking for it. I naturally have a very retentive visual memory of people, places, and of objects anyway, and this probably paved my way into the realms of poetry, making me the wordsmith, storyteller, and word healer I am today. Certainly, early Hollywood motion pictures played a large part. They were magnificent tableaux vivants, with their stories, sets, costumes, lighting, lyrics, and songs that were melodious, coherent, and memorable. And secondly, the monsoon. We were cooped up indoors from the daily relentless rain and ensuing floods, often from October to March, in my grandmother's old house. And my maternal aunts and uncles encouraged us wee ones to combat boredom and ennui by making collages and crafts. They also made us listen to music on my grandmother's old radiogram and captivated us all with stories galore. Third one, small town blues. Growing up in a small town encouraged me to daydream, to create a magic flying carpet of my own. And 4, a household of mixed faiths, Buddhists, Hindus, Christians, and Muslims. The coming together to share food, the ups and downs of life and stories. There was always laughter, joy, and tears. And lastly, 5, leaving home at a young age, not quite 16, learning to fend for myself and having to grow up quickly. Being on my own in a place where I wasn't fluent in its lingo encouraged me to be unafraid to try out new ideas and food. It also taught me about existential loneliness, which resides in all my writing. So all 5 factors played major nurturing roles in my early life. And so it's probably safe and correct to say that they were all complicit in being tiger mums to me turning out as a poet. Thank you, Neena.
Great. And this is in China, in a small place in China.
In Malaysia, or Malaya, as it was then called.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. And I think your grandmother played a vital role in all this, storytelling.
My maternal grandmother, yes.
Eternal
She was a great storyteller. And my grandfather too.
Be in heaven to see what you have created and what you are creating.
I hope she will be proud of me.
Yeah, she would be so proud of you. She would be so proud of you, Aili. You have created 22 original linked forms akin to Renga, 3 of which are Charita, Jembun, and Dua. As this edition, the October edition of The Wise Owl, is a Charita special, a genre created by you. So our viewers would be curious to know how and why you created this genre.
Thank you. The Charita was my humble way of paying homage to my ancestors and loved ones, who are sadly no longer with us, and of giving my belated thanks. Their storytelling and the way they lived their lives imbued mine with the richness of their memories. I am of Straits Chinese or Peranakan extraction. The women were called Nyonyas and the men Babas. The Straits Chinese were the descendants of Han Chinese men who settled in the Malay archipelago and married Javanese, Sumatran, and Malay wives. My family were immigrants from China to Malaya, and they braved the ocean in sailing junks, braving new worlds that were full of danger and of life's uncertainties. They brought along with them their stories of the Old Kingdom. This tradition of oral storytelling was embraced by many immigrants in their newly adopted homelands, sewn into the very fabric of their longings and their dreams of a new life, free from revolutions, famine, and pestilence. It was their way of honoring their past and of remembering their ancestors and loved ones. As to how, well, the late 1990s was an electrifying time for me when I was energized to create these unique linked forms, one after the other, and which included Charita and Jambun. Dua came much later. This was also the period when I first started to edit and publish Still, which showcased haiku tanka and short poems, one of the issues of Still. My 22 unique forms can be found with their guidelines and examples on my personal website, www.aili.co.uk, for anyone who may be interested in writing them. It was also the period when I received firstly my associateship, and then within 6 months of that, my fellowship from the Royal Photographic Society of Great Britain. I hit the ground running, so to speak. Time and tide wait for no one. I created the Lunenga on 27th of May, 1997. It has 21 verses of 1, 2, 3 stanzas, with a gap between each stanza of 6 lines. One link had to include the moon. So technically speaking, Charita was born within the Lunenga itself and under La Luna. Larry Kimmel, my dear friend and kindred spirit, who's also a fine Charita and Tanka poet, told me in his own words. And that's when I told you how this verse within your longer Lunenga sequence helped me to write a small poem that had kept eluding me in free verse, and that I thought that 6-line verse could be a form unto itself. Or maybe you thought that, I'm not sure. But I do know you thought it was an interesting idea, and I do remember with certainty that you said you think about it and give it a smashing name. I remember too how I'd asked you before we began that first collaboration, what were the rules of the Lunenga? And you said, it's like sex, Larry, there are no rules. The rest is now Charita history. More detailed info can be found on the Charita website under the Origins heading. Thank you, Neena.
Thanks, Aili. That was wonderful. And it's great to know how, minds work and the imaginative mind creates something absolutely new out of nothing. And you created this form of Charita, which is so loved today. And it tells, it invokes all the storytelling which is there in each one of us, the stories which reside within us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was reading about your concept of one breath poetry, and surprisingly, one of my books is called One Breath Poetry. Before I knew that.
How lovely.
One breath poetry. That's why I said that we are connected by the soul. One breath poetry, and your belief that drafting tends to loss of potency of the verse. Could you please elaborate on this concept?
I'll try. For me, writing in one breath is akin to prayer. I write and have always written all my poems in a semi-altered state of consciousness. Without a doubt, this must have come from my meditation. Producing a Charita or any other short-form poem for me has always felt like manna from heaven. I'm old school and wedded to pen and paper. And when these gifts of words appear, there's a rush to get them down on paper pronto before they vanish. And vanish they do on occasions when I am too slow to record them accordingly. I only come back to these poems in my writing journals when I need them again for publication or otherwise. They remain how they have been written in one breath, untouched and unaltered. I've often been told that there are poets out there who spend hours, even weeks, trying to get a poem right. And this concept of writing just floors me. With respect to them, we are not writing the Ramayana here, for heaven's sake. The more minimal the poem, the stronger its essence, its true essence, if written in one breath, in my opinion. Once the poem has been messed around the circuit, so to speak, its true essence and aha moment will be irretrievably lost. As for its authenticity, that has also gone AWOL in the poetry swamp. I'm not advocating that everyone should write in one breath, but if you are bold enough to attempt this way of writing minimal poetry, the rewards will surprise you. That I can assure you. You will be opening yourself out for spirit or muse to come in freely with gift of words that will descend as scented blossoms. I have prepared 8 one-breath cherita from my book Dream Sequence, published May 2023, which I would love to read and share with your readers now, if I may. These pieces will hopefully give them an idea of what I have intimated above. I will read them twice as they're so minimal.
Please go ahead. We are waiting.
Bear with me. Technology and I don't make the best of bedfellows. So I will try and see what I can do. Okay,
please
let me
read
see. Let me try. Okay. Et voila. Just opening. Aili, wordsmith, storyteller, word healer. Charita is now 27 years old, 22nd of June 1997 to 22nd of June 2023. www.thecharita.com. Storytelling is oxygen for the soul. And storytelling on its own is incomplete. You have to feel what you have written. Dream Sequence by Aili, available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. Alone in empty space, I lean on memories to start the carousel. Alone in empty space, I lean on memories to start the carousel. I'm a friend of rain. I listen. Once I too fell from the sky. I'm a friend of rain. I listen. Once I too fell from the sky. Time machine. Who will build it now to stop the princess from getting into the black Mercedes? Time machine. Who will build it now to stop the princess from getting into the black Mercedes? For Diana, Princess of Wales, 1961 to 1997. Finishing what you were placed here to do. You walk into the mountains to become sunrise. Finishing what you were placed here to do. You walk into the mountains to become sunrise. An old name in Chinese for fireworks, smoke flowers, a banquet of echoes for the night sky. An old name in Chinese for fireworks, smoke flowers, a banquet of echoes in the night sky. Centered page. What was left in here from the Alhambra? Centered page. What was left in here from the Alhambra? Father's voice on a still night. He hasn't left in dream time, even when leaves fall. Father's voice on a still night. He hasn't left in dream time, even when leaves fall. Nothing left for me to do but write myself out of this empty room. Nothing left for me to do but write myself out of this empty room. Thank you, Neena. I kept my fingers crossed because I was terrified it would go wrong. I'm not good with
Speechless.
technology.
I'm speechless at the beauty. It's
No,
so beautiful.
I mean, they were gifts, Neena. I always feel they are gifts. And
Yes.
that's my point with their one breath. That
You are
when they
gifted.
come, oh, thank you, Neena. No, bless you. Thank you.
You are enlightened and you are gifted. And these are gifts of the spirit which you have been blessed.
Yeah, I'm always grateful to them, and I'm never, how should I say, ungrateful about whatever they give me. That's how it is.
And each of these, Charita, it touches you, it moves you, and enters your heart, your soul, and ignites something within you. It leaves you, speechless. I got goosebumps listening to your voice.
I feel it comes from a higher source, and I don't say this lightly. And I think, with that, it comes with all the wisdom that comes, like I call it, scented blossoms. I mean, that's how they come down. And
such a beautiful poem you wrote for Lady Diana. It's such a beautiful one.
Well, there's a story to that, very quickly, if I may say. Well, when she died, I did go to Kensington Palace to see all the flowers, but then the cortege passed near me because I thought, I'm not going to central London, it would be horrendous. And suddenly, because the road narrowed, it stopped right in front of me. I could see the white wreath with for Mummy. I wrote actually a poem about it, which Dorothy Hart published in Raw Nerves. And I took my camera out to click, and my camera jammed for the first time in my life because they wanted me to be in the moment. So I felt.
Yes.
So I could see the flag and Diana's coffin. It was a full 5 minutes, I think. So I felt that I had to write something to remember her, So
when we went to London, we saw the fountain and at the place where they have made a memorial for her.
Oh, the figure,
so
yes,
and so beautiful.
Yeah.
You have been teaching Charita and other related forms, and I read that your Hampstead class, the U3A class, it has produced 7 fine poets. And what would be your advice to upcoming poets of Charita and related genres?
For starters, discard the straitjacket of rules that police thought. And most importantly, read, read, read. As many good Charita or other short-form poems as you possibly can. Keep your eyes and ears open for stories wherever you may be. If you find it difficult to rely on your imagination or memories to tell a story.
Just a moment, excuse me.
No, it's fine. I just said hello.
Sorry.
No, sorry. Say hello to.
Oh, it's my little grandson.
No, it's lovely. If your wish is to be a bona fide Charita storyteller, then write about what you know and not about what you don't. When I have my editor hat on, it is often very obvious to me when a poem is not kosher in sentiment. Try not to repeat an opening line or subject matter. Unless each version of a Charita is totally different in context to the next, it can be boring for an editor to read the same opening line or subject matter again and again. When I was editing and publishing still in the 90s, I once received a submission of 30 haiku, each of which started with the word butterfly. I don't think I need to finish this story tale for you, Neena. There is also a tendency for poets to only wish to read their own published pieces. This will only narrow their writing skills. One has to read widely, not just one's own poems, and one can learn hugely from the varied ways of writing Charita, Jambun, and Dua. My own personal books of poetry reflect the versatility and flexibility that is inherent in the DNA of the Charita, Jambun, and Dua genres. Think of writing Charita, Jambun, and Dua as different disciplines of writing. I think of them as a workout or a spa day for my brain cells, and I enjoy switching genres in any one sitting. I would also advise reading your poems out loud when you have written them. If the words don't flow or a word jars, then start again. I began by reading every submitted poem to me out loud, but these days I can hear them in my mind as I read them. It came with practice. The rest is hard graft, pure and simple. My advice is purely for the purposes of publication. If you are writing Charita for a private daily journal, then obviously you don't need to be quite as stringent. I have prepared another 8 one-breath Charita from my book Nothingness, published November 2022, which I would love to read and share with your readers now, if I may. I hope this Charita will also give them an idea of what I've intimated above. I will read them twice as they are so minimal. Bear with me again as I go down the difficult route for me. Voila, it's open. Nothingness by Aili, available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. The silverfish and I get acquainted over an old ghost story. When winter arrives on the page of the dead. The silverfish and I get acquainted over an old ghost story. When winter arrives on the page of the dead. Honeysuckle Cottage. I left you behind 30 years ago in my dreams. But on this cold night, you perfume all my longings. Honeysuckle Cottage. I left you behind 30 years ago in my dreams. But on this cold night, you perfume all my longings. The hologram of you will always be in my consciousness. I still talk to you about moonlight and old dreams. The hologram of you will always be in my consciousness. I still talk to you about moonlight and old dreams. They have all gone before me. The quiet of Chinese New Year, with opera in the other world. They have all gone before me. The quiet of Chinese New Year, with opera in the other world. My inner scars, let there be dragons to burn them off. My inner scars, let there be dragons to burn them off. In a room, rented without language, skin talk. Then the moon came. In a room, rented without language, skin talk. Then the moon came. Crooner. Her night begins with rhinestones and sequins sewn into dreams. Crooner. Her night begins with rhinestones and sequins sewn into dreams. A life apart from poetry. I cook, clean, launder, iron, and bake sublime cherry Madeira. A life apart from poetry. I cook, clean, launder, iron, and bake sublime cherry Madeira. Phew, thank you, no. Thank you, Neena. That worked, thank God.
Thank you, Annie. These are all so beautiful. And, you know, like I said earlier, they have come to you from some source from
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because once I've written them, I often say to my other half, did I write this? Did I really write this? Because it's gone. Once it's on paper, it's gone. So,
and you are so methodical in your acceptances, because I see how you know, when I have submitted to you in the past, I see how you respond to each submission. You will give individual replies. You have such a format on which you accept the submissions, and it is really mind-boggling, because every month you are producing so many, you know, Charita, Gem Bone, and people and the poets are submitting to you. It's really beautiful. And you have started this Charita Award, and you know, I whenever there is this Charita Award given, and sometimes I have been fortunate in getting it sometimes, I feel so happy and so elated, and I'm sure everybody who receives this Charita Award feels so. Tell our viewers, what is the Charita Award?
Ah, you skipped the question, so I have to try and find my notes. Sorry, Neena.
Yeah, because I thought that you have already covered that, the gap. You have found the gap in the current poetry through this short form. So that's why I skipped that question, because you
no, you're
have.
going to ask me about the balance of the rules. Fine, let me try and find them. Bear with me, please. This dyslexia of mine just drives me crazy, because if I don't write things down, it just goes.
No, because
haywire.
you've stepped away from tradition and contemporary trends of long narrative poetry and started this new trend of flash fiction and tiny stories. So this gap in current poetry genres, I felt you have already explained it, how it has come to you. It is something which the muse has blessed you with, and you started this as a kind of honoring your ancestors, the storytelling. So that is why I felt that now that you have read your Charita, you would tell us about the Charita Award.
Okay, no, that's great. But if we have time, we can go back to, because there's a nice story in there. Anyway, right, the Charita Award. The Charita Award is an exciting new project from my 123 Press. Why not become a Charita storyteller to enthrall a new generation of storytellers? All you will need is pen, paper, imagination, and an open invitation for spirit and muse to grace your page. I selected, edited, collated, and published our first Charita book, River Lanterns, this August, by solo poet Joanna Ashwell, who's a regular Charita contributor. I loved the challenge and decided then and there to offer to publish more Charita books from solo poets. In a nutshell, poets should submit 30 previously unpublished Charita as a presentational portfolio. If the 30 virgin Charita pass muster, they will go on to the next stage, which is to submit another 170 virgin Charita for me to finally select the entire 90 poems required for the Charita book, which will be published by me. However, if only 20 are found to pass muster, they will also go on to the next stage, but they have to submit another 180 virgin Charita, 10 more, for me to finally select the entire 90 required for their Charita book. The best news is that the selected poets for the Charita Award will not have to pay a penny to enter or win the Charita Award, and it will be ongoing. The Charita Award is gratis to enter or win and open to all. Having said this, their Charita will have to be timeless and top-notch to make the grade. Full information can be found on the Charita website, www.thecharita.com. I have prepared the last 8 one-breath Charita from my book, The Promise of Rain, published May 2022, which I would love to read and share with your readers, if I may. These pieces will hopefully give them an even better idea of what I'm looking for in terms of Charita. I will read them twice as they are minimal. So please bear with me again, Neena, as I try and get used to this.
Yes, we're waiting for it.
The Promise of Rain by Ailey, available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. She is always writing in her dream by a window. The baby dragon snoring at her feet. She is always writing in her dream by a window. The baby dragon snoring at her feet. A fortune teller in the empty house. Night must fall before I ask her where love is. A fortune teller in the empty house. Night must fall before I ask her where love is. This aging place you used to call home. The color of stove in North Wind. This aging place you used to call home, the color of stove in North Wind. A cup of tea, forecast of snow. I wrap my shadow up in cashmere. A cup of tea, forecast of snow. I wrap my shadow up in cashmere. I've become a peacemaker for my soul. It's happy to sit home now, make fudge, and not attempt Everest. I've become a peacemaker for my soul. It's happy to sit home now, make fudge, and not attempt Everest. The word homeless becomes another old winter story that takes breath away. The word homeless becomes another old winter story that takes breath away. The call from someone who died young to come out and play, a ghost moon. The call from someone who died young to come out and play, a ghost moon. The illusionist telling me it's all smoke and mirrors. My shadow nods in the empty room. The illusionist telling me it's all smoke and mirrors. My shadow nods in the empty room. Phew, thank God that's over. I was
Really, these
terrified
are
something might
amazing.
go wrong.
These are amazing. And I like the way you present them through this professional audio.
I also tried to find something that would interest, because your interview is coming from India, and I tried to find some subjects that might be interesting, not just any old subject, you see.
I could see that, and I could feel that. And
because they're also very close to my heart. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Each of your works must be very close to your heart because it is so special. It's
Very,
not an
very much so.
ordinary form of poetry. These are very special. And you, Aili, you're an evidential spiritual medium who trained at the Spiritualist Association of Great Britain and the College of Psychic Studies. That sounds so interesting. Please tell us a little about this.
My mother lost two of my older sisters when they were children. I never knew them as I was the youngest in the family. The fact that they were buried separately with no grave markers in the wilderness haunts me to this day. This was the norm then with children who died suddenly before they reach adulthood. When I was going through a tough emotional patch in my life, a dear friend recommended a medium in South London who she felt could help me through this difficult period. I found myself in a bright but small, rather nondescript room, sitting on an office chair and facing this total stranger of a medium. He looked straight at me and said, and I quote, "Two young women have come through, and they tell me they are your sisters. They are not of this world, and they are both hugging you and letting you know that you will be okay." That broke the dam, and I was sitting there sobbing my heart out. Two sisters who I did not know and who died young had returned grown up as young, compassionate women to comfort their younger sibling. How could this medium, a total stranger, know anything about my family history? Yet his words touched and comforted me deeply. And it changed my life and helped make a difference for me at my time of crisis. I wasn't alone. This was how my mediumistic journey unfolded. And I went on to train with two august spiritualist organizations to enable me to share love and messages from beyond with the bereaved who most needed to hear from their absent loved ones. I won't bore you with more tales as this is a poetry chinwag. Suffice to say that it is so emotionally rewarding and uplifting when a message can be received by the intended with the realization that love does not simply disappear when the ferryman comes for all of us. Thank you.
Touching and very poignant. You have gone through a lot of trauma, I would say. It's a strong word. But then
I think for my mother, it must have been
your mother,
absolutely
for your mother
horrendous.
especially, losing 2 children and then not knowing where they are buried.
And she said they were beautiful children, you know, so
Must have been.
it's
You are.
heartbreaking, heartbreaking even today.
And to lose 2 siblings for you too and not know them. And
Yeah.
then through the medium, you somehow received a hug, and it was a hug from the universe which was sent to you.
Yes, and it just released a lot of you know, the
Yes.
pain
It
and
was like
redemptions
I
within
think
me.
it was like a catharsis for you.
Absolutely.
It released a lot of
And for a
pent-up
total
emotion.
stranger, I mean, that was what clinched it. He was a total stranger. I'd never seen him in my life, and he had never seen me in my life.
Because these people are trained to do it, and then you have also trained to, you know,
absolutely,
be a spiritual.
I don't practice now, but if I do get a message that's urgent, I always stick my neck out and give it to the person. And to date, no one's ever punched me or told me off as yet. They've always been able to take the message. So
Yes.
that emboldens me to give the message when I
was one of the lucky ones to receive a small message from you too. Thank you so much for it. I'll treasure it always.
Thank you.
And you are also a fellow of the Royal Photographic Society of Great Britain. You have so many talents. Please tell us what triggered your interest in photography.
2 names, Henri Cartier-Bresson and Mina White. As you may know, Cartier-Bresson was French and a consummate humanist storyteller. He was often called the father of photojournalism, and he was also one of the founding members of Magnum Photos in 1947. Here are some of his quotes that inspired me, apart from his timeless black and white photographs. First quote, "Photographers deal in things which are continually vanishing, and when they have vanished, there is no contrivance on earth which can make them come back again." 2, reality offers us such wealth that we must cut some of it out on the spot, simplify. The question is, do we always cut out what we should? And 3, as time passes by and you look at portraits, the people come back to you like a silent echo. A photograph is a vestige of a face in transit. Photography is something to do with death. It's a trace. So photography for me is about capturing the impermanence of what's around me. And Cartier-Bresson's quotes can be applied to Charita and the short form poetry that I write. I have a personal footnote about the great man, which I will elaborate after my comment on Mina White. Now we come to Mina White. Mina White was an American photographer known for his black and white prints of landscapes, architecture, and men. His interest in Zen philosophy and mysticism was evident in his meticulous photographs. I've chosen 3 quotes of his which have inspired me and become personal mantras. 1, no matter how slow the film, spirit always stands still long enough for the photographer it has chosen. 2, innocence of eye has a quality of its own. It means to see as a child sees, with freshness and acknowledgement of the wonder. It also means to see as an adult sees, who has gone full circle and once again sees as a child, with freshness and an even deeper sense of wonder. And lastly, often when traveling with a camera, we arrive just as the sun slips over the horizon of a moment. Too late to expose film, only time to expose our hearts. I apply the same one breath method to my photography. When genius loci steps in, I click on the shutter and receive my gift. There is no dilly-dallying, no prevarication. And now for my personal note on Cartier-Bresson. When I was a student in Paris umpteen moons ago, I met an elderly Indonesian lady who took me under her wing. Her fellow countrywoman friend invited her to visit one afternoon, and my friend very kindly asked me to come along. Madame Cartier was a formidable Javanese lady who was warm, full of life, and who corrected me for calling Dutch toast French toast. Whilst these two ladies were sipping tea and chatting in Dutch, I looked around the room we were sitting in and noticed these black and white photographs of the people of Paris hanging on the walls. The ingenue that I was mesmerized by how striking and special these images were when Madame Cartier came up to me and whispered that they were by Cartier-Bresson. I was too young then to have fully comprehended what that name implied. Years after my father's death, I found a large stash of all my handwritten letters from Paris, which my father had carefully tied up with ribbon, now faded. In amongst them was my letter describing that dream afternoon spent in Madame Cartier's apartment. I had often wondered if I had imagined that afternoon visit over the years, but here was the proof in my own young handwriting. I often asked myself if my deep interest in photography was first kindled in that dim, late afternoon light of a Parisian room, when Cartier-Bresson spoke to me as a doyen of a storyteller with his humanist photographs. Thank you.
Thanks, Ailey. That was so revealing and so beautifully you have recounted all the things which have moved you to photography, the people who moved you to photography through their quotes.
They were like postcards, if you like, like a diorama, if you like, in the head. And it was very hard to...
And you click pictures the same way you write your cherita. I mean,
I have a very photographic mind, I think.
Yeah, your mind
I'm not often good with names, but I'm good with faces and like I said, people. So hopefully that will go away, hopefully, with time.
Our viewers would also be keen to know if you are working on any new book as we speak. Would you like to share some details with the viewers?
A number of books are in the pipeline. I am immensely possessive of my own virgin work. If it hadn't been for my other half, these poems of mine would not have seen the light of day. He patiently persuaded me to let them be seen and read, and I'm so glad and grateful to him that I did let go. Whenever I have a small window of opportunity, I start working on a new book to enlarge the stable of my own unpublished volumes of Charita, Jambun, Dua, Tanka Haiku, and other new forms of mine. I have to admit that the fear of not being able to produce any more poems one day is a constant and unwelcome companion. This fear rides tandem with my omnipresent rage against the dying of the light. However, the combined fear and rage keep me on my toes, writing deep into the mortal's night. So to answer your question, Neena, yes, there is always a book of mine sitting in abeyance for publication. I am not someone who rests on my laurels. I'm not proud of it, but I am driven.
Great. And we wish you all the best for these books.
Thank you.
Yeah. And in closing, Ailey, this has been such an interesting, and you have revealed about your life, about your background, about how you were motivated to do all these things and be so creative, and how the muse blesses you. If I were to ask you to describe yourself as a poet in 3 adjectives, what would they be?
This is a tricky one, and I should proceed with caution here.
You often ask this.
I have always adhered to my dear, much missed late father's advice which was that one's voice out there has to be thrown by others and not by oneself. With that in mind, I've come up with 3 adjectives, which I hope my father would have approved of. Truthful, fearless, independent.
Wonderful. Truthful, fearless, and
Independent.
independent. Great, great. You are that.
Thank you, Neena.
Just come and say hello. Come here and say hello. He wants to say hello to you,
Oh,
my
yes.
grandson. Come here and say hello.
I did see him just now briefly.
Come here and say hello before we close.
Don't be shy now. I don't bite.
Say hello.
Hello. What's your name?
My name's Charita.
I can't hear. Sorry.
His name is Tripat, which means
how-
contentment. It means contentment.
And how old are you?
7.
Wow, you were very tall for a 7-year-old.
Okay, say best of luck. Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
And best of
Thank
luck.
you. It was lovely to meet you.
Same here.
Bye.
Okay, now go. Let me close. Go.
He has lovely large eyes, Neena. His lovely large expressive eyes.
Yes.
Yeah, they're beautiful. I wish
moved
mine were
back.
like that. I
They've
wish
just
mine were like that.
They've just moved back from Seattle. They
Oh,
were
wow.
in Seattle. Now they've come back to India. So
Were they the ones in London? Were
my
they the
son
ones
was
in
in London. My son used
okay.
to study in London School of Economics, and then they moved to US. So thanks, Aili, for taking time out to speak to the wise owl. We are honored and delighted to speak to you, and we wish you the best in all your creative pursuits. And hope
Well, thank you for having me.
and hope
Danyabad,
you make
Neena.
the world. We hope you make the world richer with new genres of poetry and storytelling.
Well, Danyabad, Neena. Or should it be Bohut Shukriya if we've been informal with our tete-a-tete? I thought I would be nervous, but you made me so at home. Feel so at home. Bless you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great to be talking to you.
Thank
God
you,
bless.
Neena.